Hi, everyone. A
Hi.
big congrats to all of you on a fantastic premiere. Yay! For those of you out there in our viewing audience, I am Sara Wordsworth. I am a musical theater writer, and I have had the pleasure of getting to know J. Allen Zimmerman and his work through the BMI Lehman Engel Musical Theater Writers Workshop, where I serve as a steering committee member and co-moderator of the second year Songwriters Workshop, as well as a member of the Librettist Workshop. So I'm so happy to be here to celebrate with this wonderful artistic team of Brainstorm, a new short film that is part of Prospect's Vision series of music theater on film. I am honored and delighted to have with me almost the entire artistic team of the film here with us, and there is a lot to talk about. So we're going to dive right in with some questions and hear from them. So hi, everyone. Jay, I would love to start with you. I have so many questions about this film. So we'll ask you some, and then we'll circle to everyone else, and then we'll come back to you. But first, you have to tell us, what was the genesis of this project?
Wow. Well, first of all, Cara emailed me, and I think the original email that you sent mentioned about Beethoven and wanted to do something with Beethoven because it's his 250th birthday this year, and also to write something that included my deaf experience. And since you were aware of the music visualizers that I've been working on developing for a number of years, if there's some way to wrap all those things together. And so it was a challenge right at first. It's like, how am I going to get Beethoven and me together? Either I'm a time traveler or he's a ghost or something. And then I hit upon this concept of that I'm doing one of these talks like I do in real life, and I have a Beethoven reenactor. And so that was really how it started. I think you latched onto this idea of it's sort of like a TED, and it's a TED that goes off the rails, and we went from there.
So what was your process of writing, and how long did you take to write this piece? And just tell us a little bit about that.
So, well, I mean, you know, as a writer, how that can come and go in these waves. So right away, I was very, very inspired. I came up with all this stuff about brain sonification. I wrote this pitch, which I took into our librettist program and got some really great feedback on it. And then I got horrifically stuck for about a month or so because of this character called Jay. You know, how am I going to deal with this guy named Jay, you know, and so I have to write myself. But, you know, you want to be your best self. You don't want to be your worst self, but yet you want to be authentic. And so how am I going to deal with this character? How am I going to give him mistakes? How am I going to keep all this moving, keep it feeling organic as if none of this was scripted, and yet it is. And so that really got me stuck for some time. And then, as you know, I needed to develop the other characters and try to give them their own little through line. And so it became like a puzzle for a while. It became like a puzzle. And once I had the architecture worked out, then it was so much easier.
Well, that's a great segue to my next question, which is I'm dying to find out what was it like being both a writer and performer in this piece?
Well, again, you have this problem where I have to be me. So as a performer, if I have to be me, I mean, I can remember when I first started acting, I moved to New York to be an actor, and you do acting classes, and they're like, wait, who are you performing? Just try to be you, be authentically you on a stage. I'm like, what? That's not why I do theater. I want to be somebody else, you know? I don't want to be me. And so it's like, how do I deal with being me and sort of my public persona, whatever that is. So that was a real challenge as a performer. And then, of course, performing will have all the accessibility issues. How am I going to even know when people's lines are over, when it's time for me to talk? How am I going to know when the music is happening? So we had to resolve all of that. And of course, Mark was a big, big help in figuring out how to do that. So, I mean, it's just challenge after challenge. And I think Darren sometimes, when we had to make changes, if we had to deal with something with a writer, a composer, I literally like, okay, the composer hat says this, and the writer hat said this, but the actor performer hat says this, and everybody's kind of fighting, you know what I mean?
Well, you mentioned Mark, and I would actually love to turn the conversation to Mark for a moment. Hi, Mark. So not only were you helping to facilitate communication and sign language during this process, but you were the music associate, which is also not a small job. So I would love to talk to you about how you balanced those two roles and how that worked in this process.
Right, good question. Just so you know, I'm signing and talking at the same time right now because when I'm not signing and talking today, I've been typing in a Google Doc for Jay to help with transcription, because even though you watching this right now maybe see captions at the bottom of your screen, during the Zoom filming, we did not have that. But this is just another way to make access happen. In balancing music and communication stuff, it really just depended on when I was where. Like in the room, I think access was my priority, that during filming and during, okay, right now Jay is being told information from Darren and we need to make sure he understands, communication is priority. And then behind the scenes, I was doing more music things and helping facilitate between Jay and Kevin, who's not here, but did a lot of the sound design.
That is amazing. And tell me about your process and your involvement with the music leading up to the production.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was mostly assisting Jay with things that most musicians can sort of take for granted, around being able to understand what sound files have inside, that Jay can compose and make a lot of music, but if we're working with specific sounds, like this show has a lot of weird memories and noises that you can't write down on paper of sheet music. You can't write down, what does the car horn sound like? So I was doing a lot of trying to describe what sounds were for Jay so that he could do his work more effectively.
That is so valuable to this process. And you mentioned the director, Darren. Hi, Darren. I would love to chat with you. I'm well, thanks. Darren, as director of this film, you did such an amazing job of bringing together all of the elements of the performances and the visuals. This is such an interesting medium. And I just want you to tell us about this creative process, because I hear that it was very, very fast. So I would love to know what happened in this fast creative process to prep for this filming / live theatrical experience in the age of COVID.
Sure. First of all, thank you. I really appreciate that. One of the most important things was that I really wanted to honor Jay's vision. And so Cara came to me, and in my mind, it feels like it was like a week, maybe a week and a half out from the time that we were to shoot. And that included that we had to get 2 COVID tests in a very narrow amount of time. So we made sure that everyone within our little bubble was protected. So that was already part of the process. And so the script was given to me. And then I think we were having a Zoom meeting that weekend to sort of talk how everything was going to come together. And as you can imagine, when you look at the piece, it has this visual element. And I knew that part of the storytelling was going to have to be that this visual element, or this music visualizer, was going to have to happen in real time, which means even though it was a film and you have a little bit of ability to massage how your edits work, you had to have the live visualizer reacting to what was actually happening during that particular take. And so that definitely became something that that I was trying to spearhead, you know, as we made sure it happened, because I knew that once we got there, if the visual component is in the can and we don't have that matching up, then we don't have anything, because that's really part of it. Outside of that, you know, it was just an incredibly difficult project to cast, and we had such an amazing company. Dominique and Keiji and Jay just all sort of came together, and they're like in their own way, like doing these Herculean tasks of like these incredible things that they have to do. And so everyone was really game. It was really fast, you know, and also I did have to learn a little bit about my process as well, is that you have to sort of let go to a certain extent to know that this is what it's going to be, and this is the time, and this has to be good enough. And then you have to start to pick. You have to pick what is going to tell the story the best, what is going to give you the most emotional impact, what is going to give you the most visual impact. And so it was just about trying to balance all of those things out. But it was, at the end of the day, it was an absolute pleasure and a joy to be part of.
And did you shoot this all in one day, or how many runs of it did you do? I'm curious, what was that process like?
We shot in 2 days, or basically a day and a half day. And so we would run through, basically it was staged primarily basically like a live performance. And so we had like a starting and stop point, and we would get through this musical number, including this scene. And that's how we shot, and we tried to shoot from multiple angles. Jaime will be able to give you a better description of how that took place.
But Darren, you had to think of it simultaneously as both a film and live theater experience, right?
Yes.
That's what I kept thinking as I was watching it. Like, how do you work that out in your head as the director? What was your approach there?
Absolutely. So, you know, primarily I thought of it as if you were looking at what the TED Talk was going to be. And then I thought, well, what would be the, you know, sort of from a dramaturgy place, is that you think about what are the elements that the audience is going to need to be able to know what the story is. They're going to need to know what Jay is seeing on his phone at this particular moment for that particular shot. And so once we knew what those priorities were, it's the same thing. It's like as we're running out of time, it was like, we need to get this shot the phone, or we need to get this shot from behind Jay or behind Dominique, you know, or from the profile of Keiji. And so that's really what happened. And oh yes, and I had my phone constantly translating to one another through the phone. Yeah, so that was of course another element. We had the company had masks on basically for protection until we were filming. You know, much of what I think Jay usually is able to do is read lips. And so, as you can imagine, it was very difficult to even know when a line was starting or stopping for Jay. And so once they came off, then there was a whole nother quick learning process, and then we had to shoot.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I have to say, one of my favorite parts of watching it was that, being both a friend and colleague of Jay's, I have had that experience where his app has not translated me correctly. and so that really resonated as I watched that, Jay, but I thought that was really funny. And you take it in stride, Jay. I'm constantly impressed with your ability to keep moving forward, you know, as not only as just as a person, but as an artist. It's so amazing, your ability to say, okay, this is what I'm dealing with, but I'm going to keep going. And I'm just constantly impressed by you. And this is just the next level of being impressed by what you've been able to do. I would love to speak to the cast members, these other cast members that are here with us. I'm so happy to have with us Keiji and also Dominique. And you are definitely multi-talented with the singing and the playing. When Darren said this was, you know, a challenge to cast, wow, how lucky are we that you were in this production? I would love to ask each of you about your own background as performers, and then how you approached this piece, which had some different elements to it. So Dominique, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Hi. Thanks so much. Who I am as a performer. I'm sort of an actor, writer, improviser, singer, sort of a jack of all trades kind of person. And I've also produced a bunch of my own projects, so I sort of can empathize with the various roles that everyone had to play in the project in this particular process. So it was really it's really amazing. We got it done in 2 days. To be quite honest, it was crazy. So yeah, basically how I got involved with the project is I think Cara called me on Saturday night. Called me Saturday night and then sent me the script, and then we talked again on Sunday morning, and then I said yes, and it was off to get 3 COVID tests in 3 different states, and it was just, and the piece is like quite a bit of text for me in the very beginning. There's like a chunky monologue, and the song at the end, I know that we had a Zoom call with Jay and Darren, and we went over the song, which especially the beginning piece was kind of intimidating. And so it was just a lot of content for me to just sort of like dive into and just trust that like it's going to be fine, and my interpretation of the character is correct, and the song's going to be fine in my voice. And yeah, it just sort of like all came together. But I think that the content of the piece really spoke to me. I've been a huge fan of Beethoven for a long time, been in awe of him and his process. And so, and also my grandmother has been really, she's sort of a pioneer in the people with disabilities community, and she worked in the government for a long time. So it was really magical for me to jump into this process, sort of hit the ground running, and then get to kind of experience how an artist who is deaf like creates in the way that I create as well. It was really, I just think it was really, there were moments of the project that were really, really magical and really like interesting, because we were doing the thing that we were talking about doing. Like, even though the tech doesn't exist and we can't sonify the sound, like Jay, I remember I would be singing the song and looking at Jay and going off of his movements as my cues, and just, it kind of felt like we were actually sonifying his thought in that moment for everybody, for me singing it and for everybody hearing it. It was there were some really, really magical parts of it. And I think that my improv training really helped me, just saying yes and diving in and trusting that it's all going to come together. I mean, Keiji's talent was off the charts as well. I love just listening to the beginning montage of the Beethoven. It was just absolutely beautiful. So it was such a privilege to be a part of it. It was really just, it helped me recalibrate why I'm still doing this art.
Especially during this time, right? I mean, I think that anything we're able to watch at this time, anything we're able to be a part of, I think it feels, I speak for myself here, but I feel especially grateful to be a part of any art that is created right now, especially new work. It's really magical to still be able to do that. So you were talking about your wonderful cast member, Keiji. So hi, Keiji.
Hi.
How are you? I would love to hear about how you got involved in this crazy trust exercise.
Oh my gosh.
Because that's what it's beginning to feel like, that you were just like falling backwards and saying someone will be there.
I have to, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna just echo a lot of the same things that Dominique was saying. For me, I've been I had classical training growing up. I started playing piano at a very young age, and it was all just classical. And I played a lot of Beethoven growing up. So this actually felt, at a point in my career where I've moved into musical theater land, and, I'm doing more acting and things like that. It actually felt in that way really comfortable for me. I was like, oh, I get to play the Pathetique Sonata. Yeah, I'll do that. I think my good friend Lisa Helmi Johansson, who's worked with Cara before and Prospect before in the past, just tagged me in this post where Cara was looking for male identifying pianists who act and sing maybe, and there were like 50 names there. So I was like, okay, well, sure. And then Lisa emailed Cara and said, no, you should really go with Keiji. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So I followed up with that. And I was really fortunate to be selected to be in the cast. I think, especially in a time where, I don't know, there's a lot of distrust in the world. There's a lot of kind of feeling nervous about performing just in general because of being worried about your own personal health, putting yourself at risk. There was just such an openness and such encouragement from Jay, and then that really permeated throughout, I think, the entire team. it was just it's like Dominique was saying, I was like, oh, and I now really remember why I do all of this. It really felt, the material was really challenging. On the page, it looked like something you couldn't really imagine it until you were in the room doing it, which is why, and then when you were doing it, it made so much sense. And I think that was because we were really able to trust each other right off the bat.
Dominique, what was it like seeing your voice on that visualizer?
It was
for
interesting.
the first time?
It was really cool. I mean, for some parts of it, I was facing away, and so sometimes I got to face towards it. It was really interesting. And I could definitely tell when my tone wasn't like super pure because it will show you visually. So it was fun though. It was very interesting.
Had anyone here worked with that before, that technology, or was anyone here aware of that before this?
Yeah, I mean, I'd seen things like that, but I'd never actually played on a piano and then seen it come up next to me before. So sometimes that was a little distracting. We had a little bit of too much fun just playing around with it.
And way I did a show. It was like another cruise line show in which it was like a review, and so the whole thing was about playback, and so the whole thing was about how the visualization of the playback went with whatever song was playing at the time.
So cool.
If I just stay on that, I'm sorry. This technology is really new, so people really have not had a chance to work with it the way that we designed it. And I've tried to do many different performances using the same visualizers, but this was the first time we were able to give it so much clarity, because the audio people marked the voice separately from the piano. So it was just going straight from the piano into the visualizer and straight from the voice into the visualizer. And they gave it so much more clarity. I mean, that's why it was a dream come true for me to see it.
Wow. We also have with us, we're very lucky, our cinematographer and editor, Jaime. Hi, how are you?
Well, I'm doing well, thank you.
I would love to know your thoughts on how film and theater work together in this case for innovative storytelling.
Cara approached me saying, would you like to be the cinematographer and the editor for this movie? I said, sure. And they sent me the screenplay. And I'm reading it, I'm like, Jay, how are we gonna do this? And then, I spoke with Darren, and we're like, okay, we start putting together this plan, and then I'm, normally a movie musical gets the songs recorded ahead of time, and then everybody on stage, on the set, lip syncs to a recording that they've previously done. So you're not worrying about sound, you're not worrying about tempo, you're not worrying about maintaining any of that. But somebody, Cara, decided, no, we're gonna record all the vocals live with the music live, and we're gonna make it work. And I'm just going, how on earth? Now, the only way this worked was, number one, having such a solid team of people involved, between the wonderful performers that knew their stuff and could hit their marks and could do everything they were supposed to do on time, every time, to the Kevin, the sound designer, did an incredible job of recording everyone's voices and the piano and making it sound so good that then the lighting with Adam and all the projections, the Leanne doing all the production design, it just was, and of course Darren spearheading the whole thing, making it somehow work. That to me, it was the biggest challenge for me was sitting there, because we were there for about a full day of shooting and then half day of shooting. And in that entire time, we only recorded, it was less than 2 hours of footage that we recorded over the entire day and a half. And that's because we were dealing with all these challenges of tech aspects of the projections and the microphones, and one of the main cast members who can't hear, and everybody wearing masks. It was so a lot of the time I was just sitting there watching all this being handled by other people, going, we've got to shoot stuff so that we have material to edit later. And it became an exercise in picking our battles and prioritizing what Darren said, what is absolutely necessary in order to tell the story clearly. And, because if we had had another day or two, we could have done a whole bunch of other shots of reactions from behind, over the shoulder shots, but there was no time. So it's like we needed to be very specific and very clear about what shot was needed when. And thankfully, we shot almost the entire thing in chronological order. If we had tried to do this out of order, like most movies are done to save time, it would not have, like, the only way we knew we had everything was because we were going from beginning to end. And it, the end of the first day, we're like, okay, there's a lot still left and we have very little time. We only have like 4 more hours to shoot. So it was nerve-wracking and a wonderful experience in everybody coming together and just doing it.
I think one of the most amazing things about this time period has been how theater artists have taken the tools that we normally use and very quickly pivoting and saying, how are we going to make this work? How are we going to do this? And on that note, I would love to speak to Cara, the artistic director, prospect, producer extraordinaire, emailer, organizer of crazy trust exercises that people say yes to. I want to know, Cara, first of all, how do you get all these great people to say yes? And also, what was your original vision? How did that vision shift as the project went on?
Sure. Well, this is, I think most people watching this know that this film is part of a series that Prospect has been doing all fall. Basically, over the summer when we realized we were not going to be able to be back in live theater settings in the fall as we had hoped, Prospect decided to keep doing what we do, which is creating new musical theater. So we reached out to various people who had worked with the company in the past and commissioned some projects. And as Jay mentioned before, I'm a fan of his work and have, I think, known Jay for over 10 years now. And so it just seemed like there was this wonderful opportunity, and the timing with Beethoven's 250th was a prompt for the writing. So, I knew about how to get that part going, and I'm so grateful to the whole Prospect community and everyone here. I think Keiji and Mark I hadn't actually met before this, but as Keiji mentioned, I was able to connect with him specifically because of a mutual colleague who had worked with Prospect. So, to respond to your question about how did I find everyone, it's, drawing on over 20 years worth of amazing artists that have worked with our company and relationships. And, I felt as an artistic director, I felt a really big obligation during this time to try and keep finding opportunities and to figure out how to keep making work. And so, we've talked about the tight timeline. And part of that is because, as we learned about the guidelines for, how the safety rules and the protocols, there is this sort of 72-hour window for a COVID test until you need to get everybody tested again. So, my writing prompt, my parameters that I was working with was like, okay, I have these limited amount of resources and this limited amount of time. So how can I, use those to make something that's going to be really valuable and actually outlast this moment. I wanted to make work that I felt like we could look back on and not have it feel that it was solely defined by the fact of the pandemic. It was work that had to take place in a new way because of the pandemic, but I was really interested in getting out of, you know, the Zoom boxes and figuring out how we could actually, even if there wasn't a live audience there, bring people together to collaborate as artists, because especially for musicals, there is so much synergy of making music that you just really cannot, people are trying and doing amazing things, but there's just no substitute for having artists in a room together. So thank you all for saying yes when I called you on short notice, and for saying yes and throughout this process.
Jay, another question for you that I would love to ask is, what do you hope the audience walks away with?
I think that it's going to impact different communities differently. I hope that they will be, number one, inspired, that they'll be inspired of the beauty and magic of music, because that to me is why I keep doing this. Why do you keep creating when you can't hear all the notes, you know, and it's such a struggle. I mean, even trying to film this, my set fell down and my earbud broke and my app got stuck. So this is just the way life is. You know, this weird stuff is going to happen and you have to figure out how to deal with it. And so I think generally people are inspired to see that I keep going and I keep trying. But why? Why? It's because music is so fun. Music is like a game. It's something you just want to play with. And I think that's where, like, as a writer, I mean, I'm interested to see what people say about the music in this show, because I really want it to be sort of like a love letter to all kinds of music. There's not just one kind of music in this show, it's all kinds. And what I shoot for as an artist is to try to find this balance between something that feels really organic and live, and yet is structured enough, you know, that it makes you feel safe and it feels memorable. So I have no idea what people are going to take away from this. I think that the people who worked on the visualizers, I think they'll be really excited to see that we're trying to go to the next step with that. The tech companies, the people we're trying to do in the hearing loss community, even to try to get rid of this word gloss. I think they'll be excited. People like Dominique said and Keiji said, if you grew up with Beethoven and you love Beethoven, I hope this will give you a different sort of appreciation for Beethoven, because this is the big thing while I was writing, is that people talk about Beethoven, but they're really thinking of him as a character and not as a real person. And they just know a few things. And so I'm a real person. I really am a real person. And people will hear about me, you know, and you start to make assumptions. So I hope that they will see some of the real things and be inspired, and that they will zone in on the climax of the piece, that this very tiny little moment of touching when we're in the middle of a pandemic and it's so scary to even kind of touch a little bit, that these small little things actually are filled with so much music, you know, so much magic and mystery and beauty are in these tiny little moments. So I hope they walk away with something like that they look for it in their own life.
You do so much great work in having people not only feel music and hear music, but see music. And I think that that's just so wonderfully exciting about this piece, that we are able to see the music in front of us. And I just think that this medium was so beautiful.
Yeah, I do think that's really important, that these visualizers that we have here, I mean, thank you so much to the Google Creative Labs who built these specific visualizers, but also it's really countless of people who came before this. Throughout the installations, visual music installations I've done and other people have done, they try to figure out how can we convey what music is in a form where you can absorb it at the same rate that you absorb music, you know, and not be overwhelmed. That is a really huge challenge, to take something that has so much texture and atmosphere and beauty and distill it down into some sort of simplistic, meaningful shape. So I do have to give a big shout out to the people, Alex Chen, who at Google, I met a lot of these people through the monthly music hackathons, and I would go in there and lecture and basically complain, you know, music visualizers suck. Can you please make them better? Hey, and so that inspired people like David Liu. I mean, I hope you'll read at the very end, you'll see all these people who helped develop these visual artists in the Creativity Project. It really is wonderful, and I hope it will inspire the next group of people to take it to the next level, because we have a long ways I want to go with this. I want to see music flying out of mouths.
If anyone can do it, it's you, Jay.
Yes. Well, thank you again, Jay. Thank you again, Sarah, for your amazing hosting of this Q&A. Congratulations, everyone here again. Thank you for diving in. Thank you for saying yes and bringing this project into reality. So good night, everyone.
So much.
Bye-bye.